Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. A discussion on electoral reforms was held in the Lok Sabha on Tuesday, 9 December, with the House setting aside 10 hours for a detailed discussion on the matter. Underlining the importance of the issue, the time was evenly divided between the ruling side and the opposition. Members from various parties took part in the discussion, while opposition parties raised a wide range of concerns related to the special intensive revision, the SIR process, transparency in campaign funding, also curbing the entry of candidates with criminal backgrounds, the reliability of EVMs, and also the role of the Election Commission. The ruling side members maintained that the SIR exercise is aimed at strengthening electoral integrity and making the democratic process more transparent and accountable. So on the show today, we analyze the concerns raised by members over the conduct of elections and the need for electoral reforms in India, the world's largest democracy. Joining us are two guests, Mr. Akshay Raut, former DG Election Commission of India, and Mr. Sandeep Fukan, senior journalist who covers parliament and policy-related matters. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking out time and joining us for this discussion. Mr. Fukan, let's begin the program today with you. As someone who's closely followed the discussion in the Lok Sabha, give us and our viewers a sense of what the discussion was like, because given the consensus reached between both sides over a discussion on the SIR, it remained a contentious issue. So what were some of the major concerns which the opposition side, which wanted the debate to happen, they brought about?
Right. First of all, the wording of the discussion itself is interesting because, it is not specifically on SIR. Yes, the opposition had been asking for one on SIR, the special intensive revision of electoral rolls. But the government, even in the previous session, if you recall, Tina, had maintained that, Election Commission is an independent body. The Law Ministry is only a nodal ministry. It really doesn't direct the Commission how to function. It's an independent body, and since they cannot speak for themselves on the floor of the House, they did not agree to a debate on SIR. But the wording was changed to make it electoral reforms, which is well within the rights of the government. And within that, of course, the SIR discussion has taken place. Among the chief issues that have come up, many of the opposition leaders have talked about paperwork and how it could actually impact enrollment of voters who are not necessarily well off or well educated to get all kinds of paperwork. They said that the Supreme Court order to allow Aadhaar was a big relief in the case of Bihar. So that was, some of course questioned, for example, I remember Amra Ram, who is a CPM member from Rajasthan, from Sikar. He was mentioning of a case where a person who's 95 years old, who's who has voted for 60 years. He's been a voter for 60 years. Mm-hmm. And he's voted across all formats of, all elections. And now at the age of 95, he says that if for SIR, he has to get a new photograph and all that. So is that correct? Or is that sort of desirable? Of course, you heard the leader of the opposition making some sharp asking some sharp questions and attacking the Election Commission, but more than the Election Commission, I would say, the government of controlling or directing the commission. Okay. So these were some of the concerns. I think some of the concerns were, about paperwork, about, how it impacts the poor voter or the illiterate voter. I think some of the concerns are sort of well placed. Some of them could be misplaced. For example, several members repeatedly talked about returning to ballot. So I recall Akhilesh Yadav, Samajwadi Party chief and former UP chief minister. He said that he had an interesting analogy. He said that we are calling this discussion an electoral reform. So when do you reform? So when something is functioning well, then it is in its form. When it gets deformed, when it actually gets affected, and when it gets out of shape, it gets deformed, then you undertake a reform to bring back to its original shape.
Right.
And then he cited how countries like Germany have done away with EVMs, and they should return to ballot paper. To which, of course, an interesting point was made by BJP's Nishikant Dubey, who said that it was actually during Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's time that the EVM, the decision to introduce EVM, was taken. So, so I mean, all kinds of views came up.
So lots of concerns and lots of clarifications coming in from the ruling side on the election reform. So before we get into the specifics and the wide range of issues that were discussed, Mr. Rawat, I'll begin with what Congress MP Manish Tiwari began the discussion with. He in fact questioned the legal right of the Election Commission to conduct the SIR. Now, as a former DG of the Election Commission, I would like your response first on this remark that Congress MP Manish Tiwari made. While he questioned the constitutional, the legal and the democratic right of the Election Commission to conduct such an exercise at a national level. So your response first on that before we move further.
Yeah, thank you. What else Election Commission is supposed to do actually then? In fact, if you go to Article 324, which is foundational, in fact, before it talks about conduct of election, it talks about superintendence of electoral roll actually. So the role of Election Commission is to have the purity of electoral roll in place. That is over 75 years, okay? And this has been upheld recently, again and again in the past, but most recently by the Supreme Court also. Supreme Court has focused legitimately, as Sandeep ji was also saying, how the voters are not harassed, how better identification quickly can be done, how the documentation can be easier, but it emphasized that the right to have roll revision in the form that Election Commission thinks it appropriate, that belongs to the Election Commission of India. In fact, there could be annual summary revision, there could be pre-election revision of rolls. This time, there is this special intensive summary revision. Why the curiosity or the suspense or the suspicion or the questions are arising? Because it is after more than 2 decades. I think that's what. Because the contemporary set of people, many of us, do not have an acquaintance of the SIR process. And these questions have been answered. They have been in public space for last 3 months and more, before when it was introduced in June, towards the end of June. So the questions have been answered. The questions which came up in Parliament today are not much different from that. Okay, one of the things which is coming across is that equating or mixing of government and Election Commission of India. Actually, the constitutional structure says that they are clearly different. So that is, I think, it is our choice. If it is a political choice, perhaps it is not good. But if there are grievances against whatever Election Commission does, the electoral process, election management process, then there are 3 sets of places where it can go to. It can go as a grievance to Election Commission. It can go to the Constitutional Court. And today, as electoral reforms, it is coming to the legislature, floor of legislature. So I think this is quite legitimate. But one has to just, if we go to one by one, the questions which have been raised. First, let me just finish with EVM. Perhaps other things I can come later on. The EVM has gone through a process of more than 40 years, step by step. And to talk about going to ballot, do we imagine the time when this Bihar election has been concluded? In Bihar, there was voting stations, polling booths, which were just looted, and the ballot boxes were taken away. They were stuffed. Or, there is hooligans will come, bahubalis will come, and they will do anything with a polling booth and particularly the ballot box. Now, that's a thing of the past. This is because of EVM. And we are able to count election results and give to the people in a matter of hours. It used to take days. And just imagine the paper and all the mutilated votes and all those stories. I don't think we are going to go back to that period. No one wants that. And the Germany and Holland or something, it's a different country. Small countries, their laws are different. Our laws are different. EVM, just to summarize this, has legal fortification, physical fortification in terms of security, legislative fortification. So there is nothing, and technological fortification, because it is always monitored by a set of scientists and technologists who have to see that it progresses, not digresses. like VVPAT. VVPAT was a very well thought out introduction as an attachment to EVM, so that in case of doubt, VVPAT is also available. So we are on the course of reforms. I think as Sandeepji was saying, maybe for legislative and political reasons, SIR, it is a SIR focused discussion, very frankly, but it has been given the name of electoral reforms that encourages someone like me. Because there are plenty of areas on which legislators can work. One is the influence of bad money in election, the influence of criminality in election. In fact, there are quite a few other things which could be actually done. I mean, for example, the financial independence of Election Commission of India. There are more things which could be done. The impact of fake and artificial intelligence, fake news and artificial intelligence, the way the MCC should be viewed. MCC is gradually becoming diluted because everyone is their own law. The thing of privilege, I mean, how much of so-called announcements or pre-election transfer of money to a particular set of people should be allowed or not. So these are large areas. I think Parliament is the legitimate forum to discuss this.
Certainly. So there are so many concerns related to election reforms that can be talked about. But for the moment, the concerns largely are because of the SIR underway in several states. Mr. Rawat, before we proceed, I want to understand from you, when there are so many allegations, when there is mistrust on an exercise which is actually a technical one on the ground, doesn't intend to impact the electoral consequences, but if there is mistrust on part of so many MPs who've raised concerns on the floor of the House, how can the Election Commission build that trust? How do you ensure that citizens understand why this exercise is happening and why it's merely a technical exercise to update the electoral rules but not impact the consequences in any manner? So if the onus is on the Election Commission to win the citizens' trust, what more can we expect on part of the Election Commission to do?
Yeah, the Election Commission is responsible, and it is the duty of the Election Commission to announce as many questions which are posed to them from legitimate quarters, whether it is in Parliament or in public space. They must answer, one. And secondly, the whole SIR process must be conducted in the most transparent manner. I think the Bihar has proved it to a large extent. Even these 12 states, where the 100% of the enumeration forms could be distributed and collected back by the time we are broadcasting this one. I mean, that itself shows that among the citizens, there is not such a big problem as we think it to be. And the political parties should be associated with each step of the SIR in a decentralized manner. This gives them scope. In fact, talking in Parliament or public space or highest levels of leadership is less useful than having their agents and workers being involved on day-to-day basis to make sure that SIR is on track. Just imagine, I must tell you one thing, the form number 6, 7 and 8, which are basic forms for adding voters, correcting their things, and also transfer of voters, etc. Those are still valid in SIR, and those should be used to the maximum. In fact, let us not forget that about 24 or even more lakhs of new voters were added in Bihar itself. I'm sure in these 12 states which are going, so it is not a deletion process actually. It is not a sort of removal. It is removal on legitimate grounds, but if there is anything illegitimate or wrong about it, the booth level agents of political parties must work on it and bring grievances, otherwise they will fail in their duty. And Election Commission will be responsible for any adulteration of the purification process of the electoral roll.
Absolutely. I think amid the concerns, amid the allegations, you cannot brush off the concerns, and it's important for the Election Commission to ensure that the citizens understand the intent and the safeguard behind this exercise, which has happened in Bihar, which is currently underway in several states, and which will gradually be implemented across several other states as well. But coming back to the point on the differences on the SIR and the manner in which some parties have called for going back to the ballot polls instead of the EVMs. But apart from these specific issues, Mr. Phukun, did you see consensus? Did you sense that consensus when it came to wider reforms such as criminalization in politics, such as also, transparency in the manner in which the parties are funded? Because these have been also critical issues with regard to election reforms in the country. there were concerns raised by some members in the House as well. But was there consensus when it comes to opposition and the ruling parties on these issues?
I think it's a little difficult to expect consensus on these issues. But yes, I mean, several members echoed what Akshayji just mentioned about funding. Several members talked about how to ensure that bad money doesn't enter. There were some suggestions from members that maybe, I mean, this is an old suggestion, mainly from the left parties, that there should be elections should be state funded. There should be a corpus from which all parties should get their election expenditure. But monitoring of expenditure, and the paid news, these were all suggestions that came from opposition members. Several opposition members also raised the issue of strictly implementing the model code of conduct, especially with regard to freebies. There was a suggestion from, if I recall correctly, I think Mr. Lalmani Verma of the Samajwadi Party, who said that at least a year before a state goes to polls, the Election Commission should stop allowing the state government to transfer cash benefits, because otherwise it impacts the election favorably in favor of, it impacts the election and it goes in favor of the party that is in power because they are in government. And they were specifically referring to schemes like Ladli Behna or the, Mukhyamantri Mahila Rozgar Yojana in Bihar. So these were some of the concerns, but I think the point is that it's difficult to get consensus because every party, irrespective of what they say, when they come to power and form a government, all of them do it. I mean, while they may have an issue with, say, Bihar, but, these have been poll promises of the Congress, for example, in Karnataka, and they are implementing it in Telangana.
I think that's where the irony is. Mr. Rawat, I'll take that question to you, because when you hear the leaders talk about criminalization in politics, there is near universal agreement that, there is need to curb candidates with a criminal background, but we see very limited progress. As someone who's seen elections happen, you also understand the political systems and the necessities. Your personal view on what stands in the way? What could be the barriers? Is it the legal framework? Is it the political will? Or is it the voter behavior? Because the voters want somebody with that kind of background as well to be elected, to be their representative. And perhaps because they repose their trust again and again on such a person, the parties are forced to give tickets to them. So what could be one of the major factors because of which criminalization in politics is something that we've not been able to end fully?
Yeah, you're right. No, I think it's a dilemma. It's certainly a dilemma, but I would focus on three things. One is that the law only can go to a limited distance, and law should not come to an extent in which the democratic arrangement is disturbed. That's one. And number two is that the intent of the political parties and leaders, and now just Sandeepji was mentioning about the various freebies, which have just happened, even transfer of cash almost into a particular section, namely women, for example. And the loyalty of the voter is almost, political parties feel that it is coming. And one big demonstration of women's participation in the election, because women have turned out in larger number in the last few decade or more, and that is also partly because of Election Commission of India's efforts. Political parties have started focusing them as a group which cuts across caste and other considerations, and some type of incentivization so that the loyalty is secured, the vote is secured, is happening. Whether the political parties should take advantage of this, that, okay, put the cash and get the vote, I think that is the leadership and political parties should take a step forward. Third is, which you mentioned, is the most important. In the case of, in case of criminality, winnability of candidates. That's what is mentioned about political parties when giving out tickets, which mostly many times lands up with criminals or people with criminal background, despite the fact there is an affidavit, a declaration comes under conditions of insistent conditions of declaration again and again. that you must tell that this candidate has criminal background, but still it doesn't deter political parties. So now the voters' behavior you mentioned, that also has to get into some type of higher levels of awakening that, okay, this is a candidate whom I know that he has this type of background, she has this type of background, I'll not vote. Similarly, this money is given to me immediately before the election, or this promise is quite absolutely, it doesn't have any basis. I will not go by them. I will go by what is true, correct manifesto, ideology, candidate, and political parties' own considerations, something like this. It has to do with voters' behavior.
Okay, Mr. Fukan, what on the same question, how has your experience been? You've covered so many elections. Where is the dilemma that the political parties face? Is it more to do with will, or is it more to do with voter behavior when it comes to curbing, not giving tickets to candidates with criminal background?
Well, I mean, as Akshayji was referring to it, it's the word that political parties use is winnability. So, I wouldn't take names here, but you know the case in Bihar that a particular Bahubali candidate who has won massively. He's been arrested in the middle of the election on charges of murder. Now, there are two things. Many a times what happens that political workers, when they indulge in picketing or doing a demonstration or breaking a police barrier to lodge a protest over some issue, even then a police case is registered, right? So, and you may have many police cases, but I think one is that voters need to make that distinction and need to say that we will not vote for a man who's been charged of murder or rape or the heinous crimes, serious offenses. That's one. But what happens is that the way we look at it, Tina, and the way people in these areas look at it are very different. There is fear factor. There is fear that if I don't vote for him, then they will somehow this strong man will find out that I did not vote for him. And they will go after me. They will make my life miserable. I'll have to vacate this place. I have to leave my place.
And then there is also the Robin Hood model that a lot of Bahubalis
Then there is a Robin Hood model. I was just coming to that. Then there is a Robin Hood model that people who we think shouldn't be in parliament or assembly, for the voters they will sing ex bhaiya to mere liye bhagwan hai.
So lots of issues before we, we're able to see that
exactly.
Parties
I'll tell you
please
what
complete your point.
Happens for a common man, a rural person or a common man, getting things done out of, say, the police or the district administration or reaching the district magistrate's office or the senior superintendent of police. We as journalists, I think we don't get the idea that we think that just because we have access to them, common people have access. It's not like that at all. And it's often through these, strong men, MLAs, who actually gets things done for them. And that's why they keep getting votes. And that's why they become these winnable candidates. And that's why political parties find it easier to field them, even if they have serious cases against them. So it's a mix, it's a complex of fear factor as well as Robin Hood complex.
Certainly. Lots of factors, as both our guests suggested, on why the criminalization of politics is something that still remains a distant dream. But the other aspect to which Mr. Raut also spoke about, that some members did raise in the House, was about transparency in the manner in which the political parties are funded. But most importantly, the campaign finance, which also remains opaque. Mr. Rawat, without affecting the political activity, how do you think this can be addressed? What steps can be taken to ensure that there is transparency and there is accountability in the manner in which these finances come and go? And because it's a matter of public trust, it's a matter of transparency in the manner the parties operate.
Well, let me come to the last point first. In fact, unfortunately, I think that's why the voters' sensitivity or awareness matters. Today, for voter, it doesn't matter where the campaign finance is being done or the campaign money is being spent by political parties. I don't think deters the voter at all, or it influences the voter at all. I think these are not people's issues. There may be issues in a studio, good, and they're actual issues. I mean, in terms of electoral democracy, but these are not people's issues. I definitely have a very strong understanding of this. We have gone in some distance. One good thing that has happened is the expenditure control measures which Election Commission of India for the last 1 decade or something has introduced. That's reasonably effective. That capturing bad money, capturing all the goodies, capturing all bribery material during the period of election, that's fine. And they have squads which go and pounce upon and raid things which are like all contrabands and stuff like that. And that is done, and that is reasonably effectively. More and more capture is happening, and that keeps things at bay. And they also take certain regulatory measures across the borders and in the voting area to make sure that the money doesn't flow. But money can also come and flow before, and money can flow after, as I promised. So these are the loopholes. And we had certain things to bring some transparency of political donations. But as we know, there are systems in which political donations can be porous, can come in a manner which the law cannot capture. So perhaps there could be some more legal arrangements to make sure that political donations, like in other countries, are pretty transparent. Because political donations are reality, and big political donations are certainly a reality. Having said that, who says that people take money and vote? In fact, someone told me that in the southern state, like Tamil Nadu, they say that people vote more because they get the money on time in competitive politics and they vote for those parties. Then the discussion was, why in Kerala this money is not there? Because Kerala people their voters may take money and may not vote, someone was saying, because there is some about political awareness. This was mentioned in a discussion. So it depends on the community, on the people, to respond in a manner to such type of elements that I would see. With the final thing of talking about the money power in elections, but there has been some measures which have recently been taken by Election Commission, and they are alert on this. They're alert about the problem, but I think the problem will take some time to be completely handled. It's another thing that in the parliament today, in the name of electoral reforms, what was being discussed, as all of us know, is SIR, actually SIR. It was not all these things which went into detail.
So while SIR was the focus, there were members who spoke about a wide range of concerns, which we also discussed on the program. What we only hope is that whatever concerns were raised with regard to making our electoral system more transparent and credible and more fair is something that should not just remain mere talk. These concerns should be reflected upon. Despite disagreements, the political parties should discuss these concerns seriously and try and address as many of them as possible. But with that, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. Time allows us to take up only that much. Thank you once again, Mr. Rawat, Mr. Fukan, for joining in and sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा YouTube चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।